that we do need you to exit this chamber at that time so that the clerks can appropriately lock the doors and so we have a secure building at that time. Is that right, Ms. Perkins? Okay, so thank you. So at this time, I also want to put into the record that I received a notification a couple of days ago. Commissioner Noasad had oral surgery a couple of days ago, and so he will not be joining us for our meeting today. And we wish him success and hopefully not too much pain through that process. I can't think of anything other than coming to a Board of County Commissioners meeting. There's nothing probably more painful than going to the dentist. So anyways, so we wish him well and look forward to him joining us at the next meeting. That does not change the need for still 3 positive votes on any issue that comes before us to carry that issue in a positive manner. So anyways, with that, I'll call on, and I know this is one of his most favorite activities, is leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Ingalls. And ask Mr. Ingalls to turn on his microphone so that we can record that process. Thank you.
Well, as the sergeant used to say, on your feet. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Ingalls. So public comment. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker unless additional time is granted by the board chairperson. The Board of Commissioners uses timing lights to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. You will see a green light when you begin, and then a yellow light, which indicates you have 30 seconds left, and we ask you to conclude your comments at that time. Once the light turns red, we ask you to please resume your seat. In addition to opening public comment will also be taken on administrative agenda items that are identified as for possible action and closing public comment. At this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners. Do I have any public comment in gallery? Mr. Gaines. And I ask, before we go into this, please silence your electronic devices. And when you approach the podium, please sign in and state your name for the record. Thank you.
Ted Gaines. Don't know where I'm going to start with this, but I think our county manager needs to read his documents he hangs out about anti-harassment and Nevada ethics. I handed in a document last week about a person who took a note. I have some documents here that I'm going to ask for public record because of all the phone calls I got. It's got the inspections on it where this person was doing inspections in that building. Okay. Now, Mr. Mark there, he told me to fill a paper out. I have filled them papers out, Mark, 3 times. Twice they didn't get them. They lost them. I use a certified company. They got certified confirmation that they got it. Tim, the head building official now told me, Tim Davis, we didn't get it. Well, 3 weeks later, Tom Dallaire showed up out there with my complaint. So obviously they got it. He was trying to protect somebody that works in the county. Okay? Now, in respect to you guys here, I mentioned about you hiring somebody, and all you asked about was golf questions and boxcar questions. Well, Tom Dallaire again had gave you the presentations for that. 9 years military, 18 years construction, which I questioned, 7 years as superintendent. What he didn't tell you was the company he was superintendent for, and it says right in there, CENTCON, got a class action lawsuit against it for incomplete, inferior, incompetent workmanship, not to code. Tim Davis was the superintendent of that. He neglected to tell you that. Would that maybe have made a little difference in your judgments of the person you were putting in as a head official? Now, Privately, I got told my missus should have gave an exit interview. People leaving this county like the building's on fire. They're bailing out of here left and right, and I keep telling you, it's management. You guys will come through. You guys don't know, you five up here don't know the people in this county. You don't know that when Tim Davis took this over, every inspector in there was certified. All of them. Since he's took it over, none of them are certified. That's why he wants to change our electrical codes, because they're not qualified. They're not smart enough to pass their certifications, is what I'm starting to read here. Now, again, he told Mr. Doenstadt that he only gives 8 inspections a day. Well, I talked to 2 prior inspectors. They got from 16 to 20 inspections a day when he was running the county. So he lied there again. We got a county manager here that is not telling the truth. Mr. Doug there told me, well, you're claiming the county's breaking the law. They are breaking the law. Doug, it says it right here in the paperwork. State law, they're supposed to do things. And I'll be back at the end of the meeting. Mr. Coverly might be very interested where I'm going to go there.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Mr. Gaines. Did you say you had additional documents you wanted to add into supplemental?
Yes.
Okay. So just for the public, those items will be entered into the supplemental board package and be available to the public when the final is approved? Okay, thank you, Mr. Bergens. Okay. Is there any additional public comment? Seeing no additional public comment here in chambers, is there any additional public comment, Ms. Johnson, online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no public comment online.
Thank you. We'll move on then to the approval of the agenda. I'll entertain at this time a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as published.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Engels to approve the agenda as published. Sensing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. We'll move to the approval of the previous minutes for possible action discussion to approve the draft minutes of January 6, 2022, regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. I'll at this time entertain a motion to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Motion again by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Engels to approve the minutes of January 6, 2022 regular meeting. All those in favor, any changes to those? Sensing no changes, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All the motion passes 4-0. We'll at this time now adjourn as the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Douglas County Liquor Board. I would indicate that our Sheriff Coverly, is a member of that board, so therefore there are 6 votes available. Obviously, with Mr. Noasad's absence, there are 5 votes available, but anyways, and so item 1 on that is for possible action to discussion to approve the on-site unrestricted liquor license and entertainment endorsement for Lake Tahoe Fine Dining LLC DBA Roaring Twenties, represented by owner Kenneth Cumero. Please forgive the mispronunciation if I did so. And property manager Jordan Lobb. Kenneth Cumero and Jordan Lobb have signed a waiver of notice of hearing. Roaring Twenties is located at 27-31 U.S. Highway 50, State Line, Nevada, 89449, and that's going to be presented by Captain Michitarian. Captain?
Good morning, Captain Ron Michitarian for the Sheriff's Office. This applicant has completed all the required paperwork and inspections. However, they are pending the C of O as they are doing some painting and remodeling inside, nothing requiring a permit. And both Mr. Lobb and Mr. Kumaroa are present if we have any questions.
Commissioners, questions?
Captain Mitchetarian,
Yes, sir.
I've received several phone calls and emails concerning this approval. The concern being that one of the applicants runs, shall we say, gentlemen's clubs in Las Vegas, and they were very concerned that they might be wanting to open a strip club here in State Line. Can you address that, please?
I have no information on that right now. They're applying for a simple entertainment endorsement with live entertainment inside. Per NRS, I believe it's 244357.E, Mont Bleu, also known as Bally's, currently has the adult entertainment permit, which restricts any other adult entertainment going in within 250 feet. And I believe that this location, though I have not gone out and measured it, I believe that is within that 250-foot distance.
Would that be portal to portal or property line to property line?
My understanding is property line to property line.
Thank you.
Additional comments, commissioners? Seeing none. Mr. Coverly?
So it's actually not the NRS that stipulates that. It's actually the Douglas County Code that stipulates the 250 radius in the state line corridor, and it's only within the state line core that these options are available. So the zoning at the lake separates out the residential areas that I don't think that you could apply and have a adult entertainment venue there, but you can. It is possible to do it in the casino core area, but there is a distance of 250 feet. And like Captain Mitchetarian, I don't know if that falls within that, but I think the intent was to reduce the number of adult entertainment venues in the casino core area and limit that to one or maybe two at the most, depending on how you go the line. And I think we'd need some clarification from the DA's office as to whether that is from property line to property line, which I would think that it would be, but I don't know for sure.
Thank you. Mr. Ritchie, do you have any clarification on that?
Thank you, Chairman. Doug Ritchie with Douglas County District Attorney's Office. I believe it's property line to property line, but I'd have to research that. I'm looking in the code right now, but generally it's from property boundary to property boundary.
Thank you. Captain, did you indicate the applicants are here today?
Yes, they are.
Perhaps they could come up and address that issue as to whether or not they intend to, or if they're aware of the county code and what their plans are. So I think that would be probably appropriate.
Okay, and Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, is it Douglas County Code 5.36030E? Is that what we're referring to?
5.36 point what? 030. Yeah, E.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney Jordan Laub.
Ken Camaro.
I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have. I guess we'll do it in tandem, or I guess whoever knows much. That's all right.
Well, I think this issue was raised. Thank you by the way, for your attendance and interested in doing business in Douglas County. So at this time, I believe that was a question by Mr. Rice, so I'll let him readdress that.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I just want to let you know I've received some concerns, and being that that's my district, I figured I'd better find out exactly what's going on here. It's my understanding that you are planning on putting in a Roaring Twenties atmospheric restaurant bar and with some entertainment, and that you do not have any plans to go beyond that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So is this the question, was this I know there's a number of businesses right in that corridor between the Bally's and Harrah's.
Right.
I know that there is a previous, or a restaurant there now called the Lucky Beaver. Is this that location, or is this separate to that?
This would be the 2731 US Highway 50 building in State Line, Nevada. I refer to it as my dad's name, the Michael Lau Building, in his honor. That is the location. The location of Roaring Twenties will be at the former Exhale location in the basement of the building.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, and you are aware of this code. I just want to make sure that you're aware of the code, so that we have no misunderstandings down the road. So, okay, thank you.
Right, and I would just like to clarify, Exhale was a former bar and nightclub with live entertainment. We're not changing the use. There will be no adult characterized business as defined in the code. I understand that Mr. Kumaro does have a history of gentlemen's clubs, but that's not what he is or what they do. I don't want to speak for him, but what I'm honored to bring to Lake Tahoe is a man with excellent expertise in saving and rehabilitating spaces with a bad reputation. And I don't want to speak ill of any of my former tenants, but that is his specialty. And to have a caliber of his level to come to Lake Tahoe, spend the kind of investment that we need here to get ready for the new convention center in 2023 is absolutely necessary. Furthermore, Mr. Kumaro was the assistant general manager of the Golden Steer, famous steakhouse in Las Vegas. He ran that for 8 years. So that is in one of the top 100. I think we're honored to have a man with such an impressive repertoire of history to come to Lake Tahoe and turn around a location that didn't have the best reputation in town and make it something really special for Lake Tahoe and a higher echelon of clientele coming in 2023. So we're happy to have you. You have anything you want to say?
Thank you. Should this pass, we welcome your and hope for your success. So, any other questions by the board? Since no other questions, this is an action item, so we will open this to public comment. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment here in chambers? Seeing no other public comment here in chambers, Ms. Johnson, will you check and see if we have any comments online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no public comment online.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. And I'll bring it back to the board for possible action.
I'll make a motion to approve the on-site unrestricted liquor license and entertainment endorsement for Lake Tahoe Fine Dining LLC, doing business as Roaring Twenties.
I'll second.
So motion by Commissioner Tarkanian, seconded by Commissioner Rice to approve the unrestricted liquor license for Lake Tahoe Fine Dining LLC, DBA Roaring Twenties. Sensing no other comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Vegetarian.
Thank you.
At this time, we will, yes, we'll reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners and go to the consent calendar. I have been informed that there is a desire to move item F, as in Frank, off of the consent calendar and move it to the admin calendar. So at this time, I would ask for a motion for approval of the consent calendar minus item F and any others the commissioners or the public may wish to remove from the consent calendar.
I move that we move item F to the top of the agenda. We have somebody in the audience, and approve the consent calendar.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Ingles, seconded by Commissioner Rice to approve the consent calendar minus item F, which will be moved to the top of the admin calendar. Any other comments in that regard? At this time, I'll call for the. Is there anybody else from in the gallery that wishes to remove any items? Okay, thank you. Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. Thank you. The administrative calendar. We'll move on to the administrative calendar, and the first item on the agenda then is item F. And for possible action, discussion to approve an amendment to the existing purchase order and contract in the amount of $200,000 with Nutrien Ag to allow for the purchase of weed control chemical product Pendulum Aqua Cap at an increased cost from $37.50 per gallon to $44 per gallon. Mr. Stanton, I take it Mr. Morgan is filling in for Mr. Stanton today. So at this time, Mr. Morgan, you have the floor.
Scott Morgan, Community Services Director, Douglas County, pinch hitting for Ryan Stanton today. We are here before you to amend a contract that this board had previously approved with Nutrien Ag Company, a business that we have been doing long-time service with to control noxious weeds within this county and provide weed-free hay throughout our community in support of our agricultural community. We entered into this contract in compliance with state law because of the dollars that we spend exceed the purchasing requirement and require a competitive bid process. We entered into a contract, and then we started experiencing, as well as this company, significant increases in product prices. And we had previously been before this board to amend one product line that they no longer can purchase for the price that they could sell it. And this is the second chemical purchase, which we consume a fairly healthy amount of this product. And they could no longer buy it for what they were selling it for under their contract price. We do have representatives from the company, Matt Malarkey, who is here from Nutrien Ag, who may wish to share the complexities of the industry he is involved in. And I also have our weed control supervisor, Jeff Begovich, who is available for any questions. Before I turn the mic over to Matt, who I believe wants to say a few words, I do want to say a little bit about this company. We have a long-standing relationship with Nutrien Ag, who has really been accommodating to us. And I will tell you that over this last year, they have sold us product at beyond what they can even purchase in compliance with their agreement. They are very deeply saddened to have to come with these price increases, but it is a very volatile market. And we really appreciate their support, their help, giving us phone calls. Primarily that product is in low supply and high demand, and allowed us to pull every available ounce of product in the state of Nevada to support our ag industry. And so we have a really well-managed weed control department through Jeff Begovich, who has stockpiled some of those resources in anticipation of these shortages so that our ag community and our control of noxious weeds in this county can be sustained through these times of supply chain shortages and massive price increases. So Matt, would you like to come up and say a few words?
For the record, Matt Malarkey, Nutrien Ag Solutions. But first of all, I'd like to congratulate this commission by approving that Roundup sale the last time. You guys are now holding more Roundup than any other entity in the state. So also yesterday, Bayer, the company that produces that, just declared force majeure across the entire U.S. market. So glyphosate is now no longer available despite, in exclusion of what's in the current supply chain, until the end of Q4 of 2022. So I just bring that up because it's very indicative of what we're seeing in the market overall. The volatility is extremely high. Our price increases since we submitted our bid last fall have been in excess of 20% on some products, up to double or triple. And so we do have a long-standing relationship with Douglas County. We've tried extremely hard to maintain prices, to get product to you guys before we saw price increases coming. I can tell you that right now, all of our internal economists in the company are expecting prices to continue to climb throughout 2022 and potentially into 2023. And I don't think I'm telling a story that you probably haven't heard before with paving costs and pipe costs and every other cost associated with inputs. You know, I was a little nervous coming down here. I checked with my stepfather, who's a commissioner in Elko County, and he was like, we're seeing the exact same thing up here. So to that end, you know, I just hope that I'm available. I can answer any questions that you guys may have. The pendulum issue with regards to this is that by the time we were able to receive product in, the product had come in at a significant price increase. Our company, because that product is so short, our company is issuing minimum pricing on all product going out the door, right? And the only way we can get product in your guys' hands or any of our customers' hands or growers' hands is to be at those minimums. If we refuse to sell or sell below that, they pull product from us and ship it to a branch who will. So anyways, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have, or if I've cleared it up, I hope that's good.
Commissioners, question?
Matt, force majeure, is there any alternative source?
For this specific chemistry, no. Because of the labeling that's on Pendulum AquaCap and the uses that Douglas County requires, you have a very limited amount of products. We have been able to go through the bid, and we have been able to find alternative products for a number of chemistries that you guys are using to switch you into products that potentially that can do the same thing. In this narrow band, though, there's not a lot of options. And so, to your answer, not really.
You supply NDOT as well, don't you?
We do supply NDOT as well. We're in force majeure status with them as well on a lot of chemistries. We're going through the same process, and to further that, we have since the beginning of February, end of January, we have ceased entering into any bids. Any bids, county, private, anywhere. So we're issuing no bid costs to our growers and to our county, state, golf courses, you name it. So we're out of the bid game because there's no way to hold them together.
At the ranch, I use concentrate. It used to cost me $22 a gallon. I looked the other day, it's now $62, if you can get it.
Yep, that's exactly correct.
Wow, thank you.
Commissioners? Mr. Turkanian, questions? No? Okay. I did have a question. Based on the name here, it says Pendulum AquaCap, would indicate that it's a water-based product. Is it a water-based product, or is it a petroleum-based product?
The water cap means that it's an encapsulated, they basically take the active ingredient and they encapsulate it and then put that into a water solution. And so then it's a concentrate that you mix with water before you go out and spray.
But a lot of pesticides are petroleum-based.
A number of them. We still have a few petroleum-based pesticides. The market tends to be shifting towards softer chemistries, and so we're seeing a lot more water emulsion chemistries. So, but there are still, yes, petroleum-based.
Okay. Because we're all experiencing, anytime you enter into issues with petroleum, of course, we're all experiencing that at the pump in gasoline. So I thought maybe some of this was identified as also the the process of all petroleum-based products going through the roof right now. But
To speak to that a little bit, where we're seeing the biggest pinch in our market and in a lot of supply chain markets with regards to petroleum are in plastics. And so a lot of our vendors are having a hard time supplying jugs, caps, that kind of stuff to actually put the product in.
that makes sense. Okay, thank you. This is an action item, so at this time, if the commissioners have no more questions, we'll go to the public for public comment. Okay, sensing no public comment here in chambers, Ms. Johnson, is there any online public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no public comment online.
Thank you. Bringing it back to the board then for any other questions or entertain a motion.
Chair, I'll make a motion. Move to approve the amendment of the existing purchase order contract in the amount of $200,000 with Nutrin Ag to allow the purchase of weed control chemical products, Pendulum AquaCap, at the increased cost from $37.50 per gallon to $44 per gallon.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Engels, seconded by Commissioner Rice to approve an amendment to the existing purchase order in the amount of $200,000 with Nutrien Ag for the purchase of weed control product Pendulum AquaCap at increased cost of $37.50 per gallon to $44 per gallon. Sensing no other comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much for being in attendance
Thank you
today.
very much, Commissioners.
Okay, at this time then, we'll go to our administrative agenda. And we'll move to item number 1. For possible action, discussion on the possible appointment of Elizabeth Leinhart to the, and once again, I apologize if I mispronounce the names. So some of these names are not as easy to pronounce as they may appear. Elizabeth Leinhart to the Senior Services and Public Transportation Advisory Board from the Tahoe Township for the unexpired term of February 17th, 2022 through December 31st, 2023. And to my knowledge, this is as a result of an unfortunate accident that was experienced with a previous member who lost his life through a unfortunate accident slipping on ice. So, Mr. Cates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we advertised for this vacancy, and Ms. Leinhart's application was the only application we received. So that makes your decision pretty straightforward. She was not available to be with us this morning in case you had questions. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cates. At this time, this is listed for possible action. Is there any public comment? Sensing no public comment, is there any public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no public comment online.
Thank you. So bringing it back to the board, I would remind the board that Ms. Leinhart did apply for our Parks and Recreations Commission back in December of this last year, and due to the restraint of number of appointments we had available there, she was not successful in that. So I did reach out to her and encourage her to possibly put her application in for this particular board. And so with that, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the appointment of Elizabeth Leinhart to the Senior Citizens and Public Transportation Advisory Board from the Tahoe Township for the unexpired term from February 17, 2022 through December 31st, 2023.
Motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls, to approve the appointment of Elizabeth Learnhardt to the Senior Services and Public Transportation Advisory Board for the unexpired term that extends through December 31st of 2023. Sensing no other comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Congratulations, Ms. Learnhardt. I'm glad you're finally able to enter into that type of role for us in the county. So anyways, item number 2 for possible action, discussion on the possible appointment of Kevin. I'm going to once again try this. Could Kerr? Okay, Kevin Kerr to the Douglas County Advisory Board to manage wildlife for the unexpired term of February 17, 2022 through December 31st, 2023. It's my understanding that this appointment came available for the same unfortunate accident that occurred just before the new year. Mr. Cates.
Thank you, Chairman. As with the other vacancy, we advertised for this, and Mr. Kerr's application was the only one we received. He also, and he is online if you have any questions of him. Thank you.
Mr. Kerr, are you in attendance?
Yes, I am by Zoom.
Okay, thank you for attending. Was there anything that you would like to share with us regarding this?
No, I just wanted to thank the Board of Commissioners for considering me, and I look forward to serving the people of Douglas County. If you have any questions, I'm sure happy to answer.
Thank you. Commissioners? Sensing nothing from the commissioners, this is an action item, so is there any comments from members of the public that are here in chambers? Seeing none, is there anybody online, Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no public comment online.
Thank you. Bring it back to the board and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Kevin Kerr to the Douglas County Advisory Board to manage wildlife for the unexpired term of February 17, 2022 through December 31, 2023.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls to approve the appointment of Kevin Kerr to the Douglas County Advisory Board to manage wildlife for the unexpired term February 17, 2022 through the end of this year. Now, is that 2023? So that's actually a year and a half appointment. Well, almost 2-year appointment, right? Am I right on those dates? Unexpired term, but I mean the unexpired term ends on December 31st, not of this year, but of 2023. So that's almost a 2-year appointment. Okay, just wanted to make sure I had that clear in my mind because I thought it was only for the rest of this year. But anyways, that's fine. Anyways, sensing coming back to the board, then we have a motion. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0. And congratulations, Mr. Kerr. Look forward to having your help on that board as well. Item number 3. This item, I believe, is a previous item that we tabled at our last meeting for possible action, discussion to approve a hangar and office space lease number 2323BH at the Mendon Tahoe Airport with ACES Aircraft Maintenance Incorporated, which has an annual payment obligation of $74,600.04, and authorize the county manager to sign the lease agreement. We have in attendance Ms. Bobby Thompson and Frank Monak, I believe, is new to the position, right? So, with that, I'll let you give a presentation. Thank you, and it's good to see you back in the county, Bobby. It's been a while.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your time today. First of all, I'd like to apologize. We weren't here the last time. Our phone system had gone down, as well as our computer system. IT was working diligently, and we weren't aware of the time change. So we do apologize for not being there. And Frank's been with the airport for a few years. We've just promoted him up to keep him busy.
Yeah. Well, with that, I was going to say with that, Frank Monak, Assistant Airport Manager for the record. My understanding that this item was pulled for some confusion. Aces Aircraft has been a tenant on the airport for the last 5 years. Their lease has come to term, and he's just looking to renew another 5-year lease with a 5-year option to continue running his maintenance shop on the field. He's been a fantastic tenant. We hope to continue to have him on the airport, operating in a aircraft maintenance function. So with that, we're just asking for your approval for this lease, and I'll answer any questions you guys have.
I'd like to, Bobby Thompson for the record, I would like to give a little background too, for some of the folks that are newer. That building that he occupies that we want to give him a new lease on was one that was partially finished and left empty for a number of years. And then the county received it in a lawsuit situation, and he became the tenant and has been a good tenant since that time, and actually has made improvements to the building and brings quite a lot of business into the airport.
Thank you. If I recall, Mr. Tarkanian, it was your desire to have this tabled a couple of meetings ago, and I guess you had some questions regarding the fee schedules, if I'm not mistaken. So you have questions now?
I didn't ask to have it tabled. I just asked a couple questions on the lease, and they didn't have it, so they said they would provide it. One is a new lease. Usually when tenants renew, it's an amendment, but the district attorney explained why that was. I just was asking what the lease rate was in the last term compared to what you are now and what the annual bumps are. Simple question. I'm sure you have this.
Bobby Thompson for the record. Yes, that's a very good question. In fact, his rates have not changed. He is subject to CPI increases and fair market value. And based on fair market value from his current rates to now, based on the FAA rates and charges policy, his rates would remain the same until CPI. Unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, we are part of the San Francisco area for CPI, and CPI is going up.
The CPI didn't go up this last year? Is that what you're saying?
It did not, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Ingalls?
Okay. The reason we pulled this is that I was looking at it. I hadn't seen one of these before, but I didn't know it was a five-year lease. And I was reading the lease, and the lease is pretty extensive. So rather than me trying to digest it, I wanted to just give a chance for, do you review the lease, or does the DA's office review it, or what do you do? And also, what's Avgas going for now?
Bobby Thompson for the record. To answer your first question, the county owns several buildings on the airport, and within those buildings, such as the Tail Dragger Restaurant, one of the buildings that Soaring NV occupies, this building that you're referring to in this lease, with those buildings, we only do a 5-year term because they are owned by the county. We want to make sure that they're well maintained because they're a county asset. So that's why only the 5-year lease gives us a little more control. Our leases are very long. Unfortunately, with all the regulatory things that impact the airport and the state and other things, we need to make sure all that's included so we can protect the county assets. And yes, we do have, Carrie Rosser is the airport designated attorney out of the district attorney's office, and she reviews all of our leases for us. Avgas is about an arm and a leg.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you for your presentation. This is for possible action, so I will open the floor to public comment from here in chambers. Are there any public comment here in chambers? Sensing none. Ms. Johnson, do we have anybody online today, or is just...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson. Yes, we do have one person online, but they have not indicated they want to provide public comment. So there's no public comment at this time.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll bring that back to the board then. Further comment or a possible motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the hangar and office space lease 2323BH with ACES Aircraft Maintenance, Inc. as presented and authorize the county manager to sign the lease agreement.
Motion by Commissioner Tarkanian, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls to approve the hangar and office space lease 2323BH to ACES Aircraft Maintenance Incorporated, which has an annual payment obligation of $74,604.04, and authorize the county manager to sign the lease agreement. Sensing no other discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you very much.
Moving right along, item number 4 for possible action. Discussion. Oop. What? Item 4 is for possible action. Okay. For item.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. No problem. Item number 4 for possible action. And I had them print me off a fresh copy this morning. So anyways, item number 4 for possible action. Discussion on the possible adoption of ordinance 2021-1579, amending Title II, Chapter 2.32 of the Douglas County Code, redesignating the Regional Street and Highway Commission as the Regional Transportation Commission and updating the powers and authorities of the commission consistent with Nevada revised statutes. This is the second reading, and Mr. Erb is here. Is Ms. Rosser online or? Okay, because I sensed that she had possibly moved out of state. So, Ms. Rosser, are you now in Washington, D.C.?
I am in Washington, D.C., but I'm glad that I'm able to participate via Zoom here right in Douglas County. It's good to see all of you this morning.
You didn't come over this last weekend and visit with us while we were there. Anyways, but
I heard about your visit and I really regretted that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Erb and Ms. Rosser.
And thank you very much for taking the time. Commissioners, Carrie Rosser with the District Attorney's Office. For the record, the ordinance that you have before you today relates to our Regional Street and Highway Commission, which we have colloquially referred to as the Regional Transportation Commission for at least as long as I have been with the county. And this ordinance will officially make the name change if it's adopted today, consistent with some updates to the Nevada law over the last 30 to 40 years. There's also just a few minor changes to Title II of the Douglas County Code where that section is codified, just to clean up the language and make the references to statute accurate to today's numbering. There have been no changes to this ordinance between the first and second reading. Everything is as it was the first time, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and that's all we have.
Thank you. Did you have anything to share with us, Mr. Erb?
John Erb, Douglas County Public Works, for the record. No, Ms. Rosser did cover everything about this, and we're just trying to make everything up to current with the NRS. So thank you.
Okay. As we've done with a number of other boards and commissions, we've had to just slightly update their names, so to speak. Okay, commissioners, any questions? Nothing from the commission at this time. This is for possible action. This is the final reading. So anybody in chambers? Sensing none. Anybody online? Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. At this time, there's no public comment online.
Okay, bringing it back to the board then for a possible motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Rice?
Now that I have the proper paperwork, I move that we adopt the ordinance 2021-1579, amending Title II, Chapter 2.32 of the Douglas County Code, redesignating the Regional Street and Highway Commission as the Regional Transportation Commission, and updating the powers and authorities of the commission consistent with Nevada revised statutes.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Rice, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls, for the adoption of ordinance 2021-1579 as read. Since no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you for coming, and thank you, Ms. Rosser, for attending. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Now we get to item number 5, which is for presentation only. Okay, discussion on the introduction of ordinance 2022-1596, an ordinance abolishing the office of constable for the East Fork Township, appointing the Douglas County Sheriff as the ex officio constable, and providing for other properly related matters. This is the first reading. Mr. Cates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The ordinance before you, as you indicated, would seek to abolish the position of constable. Paul Gilbert, the current constable, has served for 10 consecutive terms, so he's had very long distinguished service with the county. One of the benefits to the county of Mr. Gilbert being in that role for so long is that he is post-certified peace officer, which is not a requirement in statute. Back in 2003, the Board of County Commissioners voted to abolish the office of constable in the Tahoe Township, so there is precedent for this. The way statute reads, if the Board of County Commissioners abolishes the office of the constable, those duties fall to the sheriff's office. I've had discussions with the judiciary as well as the sheriff's office, and we are all in agreement that the best path forward would be to abolish the position of constable after the completion of Mr. Gilbert's current term.
Thank you. So as I understood it, and we want to make sure that that's clear, number one, the sheriff, our county sheriff, is in concert with us, Sheriff Coverly. Okay, and the reason for bringing it so rapidly here is, when this was brought to our attention, is to ensure that we got this enacted, should we wish to do this, prior to the opening of the filing of elective offices from March 7th through the 18th. So anyways, that's why it's on the agenda today. Is there any other discussion by the other commissioners? Mr. Rice?
Mr. Chairman, when I first heard about abolishing the position, I was very concerned. Paul Gilbert, our constable, has been a friend of mine for over 30 years. And after I left the boat, thank you, my knees, I became his first deputy constable. And I stayed in that position until I got elected to this one. And I'm not going there, but I was concerned. I had a long conversation with Paul, and he's ready to retire, and the sheriff's ready to take over the position. So I have mixed feelings. I probably have the last existing constable's badge, and I ain't giving it up.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so this is for presentation only. This will come back to us as for possible action ordinance at our, I believe it's the March 3rd meeting. Is that correct? March 3rd, so for action. So thank you very much. We'll move to item number 6 on the agenda for possible action. Discussion on a proposed reorganization of the county manager's office to promote effective and efficient operations. Possible action includes the elimination of a vacant Administrative Services Manager position, S2 pay grade, at an hourly pay range of $27.42 per hour to $41.14 per hour, and the creation of a new classification, Chief of Staff, M1 pay grade, at an hourly pay range of $34.64 to $51.97. If approved, the reorganization will not create any additional positions and will cost approximately $19,000 per year. Mr. Cates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the existing Administrative Services Manager position, as the board is aware, is vacant with the departure of Natalie Wood. We really took that opportunity to look at the organization of the office and make sure that we would be able to meet the needs of the county and in the office going forward. The Administrative Services Manager position is, you could think of it as an office manager, typically supervises clerical support staff. The primary duties of this job include supervision of the support staff in the office and support of the board meeting. I will say that Ms. Wood brought a lot to the job, and she provided a broad coordination role across the whole county. And I think her progression to the state into a professional level position is evidence of that. I think we put a lot of thought into our ability to recruit somebody with that kind of skill level as an administrative services manager, and we think it would be very difficult to do so. So we really looked at the function and the needs of the county, and what we would like to do is eliminate that position and create the chief of staff. In addition to the current duties that the position performs, we would add supervision of economic vitality as well as our community relations programs. Those programs have professional staff in them, so it would be important that this position be at a professional level. That's why we're looking at the M1 classification series for this position. And it could coordinate those functions along with liaison to emergency management. As you know, we are contracted with East Fork Fire District to provide emergency management services. That does require a lot of coordination and all hands on deck, particularly during emergencies. There's also some things in that program that we have not been able to address, such as updating our emergency management plan, which is substantially out of date. We think by elevating this position to a chief of staff, that more focus and attention can be brought to those functions and better coordination. I am also expecting that this position will be able to perform that liaison role with other departments and help and coordinate their activities and provide them assistance where needed. In manners that it's very difficult for just myself and Ms. Davidson to do. Ms. Davidson brings a lot to the job as well, but we have a lot of departments. I've got her focused in certain areas right now. This would definitely help with the management of the office. And one thing, depending on the applicant that we get and their skill level, that has been really important to me is creating a culture of process improvement and updating how we do things and modernizing, and I think we've made some pretty good headway in that regard, but it does require somebody that has the time and the expertise to sit down with agencies and work through those processes. And that's not just something that I want to do, it's something that's important for the county, but it's also ties in with a lot of audit findings we've had to update procedures. So I would be looking towards this position to help coordinate those functions and make sure that we really progress in those efforts, because I think it has a lot of value added to the taxpayers. It does involve an increase in salary range compared to the existing position, would not create any additional FTEs in the office. The fiscal impact is estimated on an annual basis to be $18,782,000 per year, in addition from what we are currently spending on that position. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Commissioners? Mr. Ingalls?
This is going to be open internally as well as for external. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'm looking to do an open recruitment on this, eligible to county staff or anybody.
No? Mr. Rice? Okay. This is for possible action, so at this time, I would open the floor in chambers to public comment. Not everybody is getting up all at once, so we'll take it. We have nobody here. Ms. Johnson, is there a public comment online?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marcia Johnson for the record. At this time, there is no public comment online.
Wow. I wonder what that person wants to say. Okay, sensing no public comment or seeing no public comment on either platform, we'll bring it back to the chair or back to the board for possible action. To entertain a motion at this time.
Page 274 of the packet.
Did not turn on. Okay. I make a motion to approve the proposed reorganization of the county manager's office as presented.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Tarkanian, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls to approve the proposed reorganization of the county manager's office to promote effective and efficient operations. Since no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Cates. We are moving fairly well here. Okay, so we'll go to item number 7 for possible action. Discussion to 1, approve the final report from Federal Engineering Incorporated on the Public Safety Radio System Study, and 2, direct staff to identify funding to implement all or portions of the suggested actions in the report. And this is being brought forward by Mr. Daniel Johnson, I believe our manager of IT. Do I have that title right? Director of IT. Okay, Director of IT. Mr. Johnson.
Daniel Johnson for the record, Chief Technology Officer for Douglas County. And this is a presentation on the radio engineering study that we commissioned last year in April. You approved a contract with Federal Engineering on April 15th of last year to conduct an engineering analysis of the county's current public radio or public safety radio system and provide recommendations on system upgrades and to improve system functionality. We have 3 radio systems within our overall radio system operating off VHF frequency. We have the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, Tahoe Douglas Fire, and the East Fork Fire Protection District. We contracted with Federal Engineering to conduct the independent needs assessment for those 3 systems, including the backhaul. In their study, they performed the tasks where they reviewed existing system documentation that we had. We conducted radio site surveys at 16 radio sites where they went up and walked the sites and checked them out. We also did stakeholder interviews with all the stakeholders, the Tahoe Douglas, East Fork, and the Sheriff's Office, and a radio coverage workshop with the stakeholders for existing coverage gaps. Kind of a quick summary of the existing analysis that they provided. Product support for a lot of our equipment. Our systems are aging with major infrastructure at or near the end of the life cycle. So we have some limited or no support. Some of our equipment we can't get parts for, so if it fails, we'll use we do have spares, and we'll use those, and if those ones fail, we would go out and get new equipment that's updated. Our current system can still use the new equipment, but we do have quite a few pieces, and we can repair what's currently out there. Interoperability, all our agencies require the new systems retain existing interoperability for communicating with each other and mutual aid partners. our both neighboring states and neighboring counties. Our coverage, system coverage is an issue that was identified, requiring some improvements to address some problem areas that we have. The site remediation, sites require some infrastructure improvements to meet current industry best practices. And then the system reliability, which is the backhaul system, makes some improvements to our backhaul system. We did consider two options for the sheriff's office with the design. The design option one is sticking on the VHF that we currently use. And this table here provides some of the coverage, capacity, interoperability. With the sheriff's office, we also took a look at going to the 800 megahertz system and what that would take, which is the state system. There is some differences, some of the things that system could provide over the air, reprogramming over the air, rekeying of the stuff would be one of the advantages, as well as some interoperability with like NHP on that system. They'd be on that system. With that conceptual design, we only looked at VHF for Tahoe Douglas and East Fork, as their indication during the stakeholder meetings was that they need to stay on the VHF for interoperability with their surrounding agencies, BLM, CAL FIRE, Park Services, and such. And then on the backhaul, we're looking at the design and development of a new backhaul network to interconnect the sites. These design cost estimates were very conservative on their side. They used retail pricing, no discounting, anything like that. So design option one would be everybody staying on VHF. Design option two would be Tahoe Douglas and East Fork staying on VHF and the sheriff going to the 800. And these are the numbers they came up with for the different sections of the system. You'll notice the 800 site is actually an increase or a higher cost comparison. One of the things that came out of the study was that we would have to add an additional site on the 800 system for our coverage needs that's not currently in their system. So they priced that out as if we had to add that in. And likely we would have to if we went to the 800, as it's a requirement for us and not necessarily for the rest of the state. So you can see it's some pretty hefty price tags there, but again, they were very conservative on their estimates. Now, we can phase the recommendations within this study. It does not have to be an all or nothing type of implementation. Their recommended priority order is the site development first, complete the existing site improvements to bring those sites up to industry standard, and then procure and install new equipment at the sites, and then finally the radios. And subscriber radios, when they priced them out within that price sheet, they included all the radios, although all the entities continue to purchase radios and have some new radios already in place. That's not factored within that price sheet. So the suggested steps within the study are to obtain funding, make adjustments based off funding if necessary, develop the technical spec based off the funding as well, RFP the system, prepare and submit any regulatory submittals for the coordination of frequencies. That's usually in line with the backhaul. We'd be looking at some microwave backhaul, licensed microwave shots for the backhaul, and any environmental approvals. Develop the migration plan with stakeholders and make sure they're involved with the planning of upgrading those areas. And then monitor and supervise the awarded vendor implementation, then decommission or repurpose the old systems. Are there any questions? Basically, I presented what the executive summary of the report is that's in the packet.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Yes, Mr. Ingles.
Mr. Johnson, just a couple of questions. In regard to these new systems or any future systems, are they hardened for EMP or anything like that?
They're hardened for environmental. I mean, if you start talking EMP, they're electronic systems. So depending on what happens there, they do have hardened enclosures as part of the industry best practices. They do have some stuff. There's limitations. I mean, you still have to be able to operate the radio equipment, and that is electronic. So if you're talking like a massive scale EMP, it could still affect it, sure.
Are you starting to see this technology coming out with your research and so forth? Not specifically here, but it could be with the computer systems and things of that nature, any of the electronic stuff?
Yeah, there are some stuff out there. I mean, that's a concern, some of those types of cyber attacks. Those physical ones are not as much of a concern as actual just cyber attacks and hacking into systems, and that's where we focus our security efforts, both on the computer side and on the radio side. With the radio network, it's kind of a closed network, so it's not open to like the internet coming in and doing it, connecting to it, that sort of thing. So that helps to secure it.
In the forecast you presented, has inflation been taken into account?
Yes, it has.
Good. Thank you.
Mr. Rice?
I was going to say good afternoon, but we're not there yet. But having worked in the field here, it's nothing more disheartening than to call for help on your microphone and have the dispatcher not be able to hear you because you're in a dead zone. And that dead zone can be bad. Can I assume that this new system will remove most of the dead spots from our geographic areas?
Correct. If we were able to implement everything that's within the report, it doesn't eliminate dead spots altogether, of course. With our topography, that's kind of difficult to do. But this does improve the coverage maps dramatically for all three agencies. Given that, some of the recommendations within the report include sites that are not owned by Douglas County. So obviously, if we were to go with the full recommendations, we'd have to be engaging other entities for lease agreements on their towers and whatnot. So we would be looking at that as options for where we place the location of the equipment.
Can I safely assume that this would have no impact on cellular use?
Correct. It's in different frequency ranges.
What I mean is, if you can't get to the dispatcher on the radio and you have no cell phone, that I can't say that. You're pretty much out of luck. And there are some areas where we have no cell phone, we have no radio communication with dispatch. Will this take care of at least some of that?
Yes, it'll take care of some of that. This won't affect any of the cell coverage. None of the cell coverage site or stuff is within.
Okay, so that would be completely up to the private vendors.
Correct.
And we would have nothing to do with that.
Correct, but this would improve our coverage on the radio system if all the recommendations within the report were implemented, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, Mr. Johnson, I appreciate the report. I know we had some, during the Tamarack fire last July, I know we had some, it appeared that we had some failure of communications in South County between our sheriff's office and our fire department or whoever else was the governing agency down there. So is it anticipated that should we be able to generate the funding for this process, would that be resolved? Do you anticipate that?
I will say that it would be improved. The reason that we lost the radio coverage during the fire down there was we had Frontier phone lines that were damaged in the fire, and that is what our current backhaul is to a lot of our sites is the Frontier phone lines on T1. The recommendation of this new study is using fiber backhaul at those locations where we could get fiber, which is great, but fiber is also subject to potential fires if it's above ground. And so it may not alleviate it, but we're also looking at licensed microwave to provide IP backhaul to those locations. And in that situation, if we had a licensed microwave, we would have, I won't say we wouldn't have gone down because that fire was pretty devastating. We would have had to see what the results were, but we would have been able to bring it back up much faster.
So it appears that I live down in Topaz Ranch Estates, and as I travel up to North County through 395, it appears that there's an entity out there putting underground lines in of some sort. I haven't stopped and actually talked with them about it, but I'm thinking that's probably broadband that's being extended or upgraded. So you would be able to tie into, that would be your backup, or that would be your primary line?
Correct. If we could, from the radio sites, if we could connect into a fiber backhaul, then we would use that, and that would be our primary line. Those sites where we can't, we would use microwave.
So we're looking at a pretty pricey price tag on this, and obviously this motion only directs you as staff to identify, or our CFO, I guess, to identify possible funding to implement portions of this. So as we identify, have you prioritized anything in regards to if we were only able to, because, I mean, we're looking at $10 million to $12 million. Have you kind of looked at a prioritization of the different items on it to determine which would be best suited in the short time until we can get all the necessary funding together to complete the project?
Yes, we have. As part of the report, their recommended priority is to do the site improvements first. And the site improvements, if you look at the cost sheet, come in at about 1.45 million. I'd have to look at it again to get the exact number, but it came in at about that. So we would look at the phased approach, and we would look at doing site improvements as a phase one, and then further on. And it all depends on funding sources. We're going to be looking for all sources of funding, both internal to the county and external grant funding availabilities and federal funding availabilities to secure dollars to implement this roadmap to improve our system.
Yeah. We heard a lot as we were visiting Washington, D.C. this last week. We heard a lot about the federal infrastructure bill, and I would hope that maybe we could look at tapping into that a little bit, if possible. It was interesting when we were back there where the different governmental agencies back there kept talking about federal funds here and federal funds there. But we all have to remember that those federal funds come directly out of our taxpayers' pockets, including mine. And so anything we can do to bring those taxpayer dollars back into our county, I'm certainly interested in jumping on and bringing back to our community. Anyways, I believe you had a comment, Mr. Cates?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You really hit exactly on where I was going. A phased approach to this. We are looking at putting together a supplemental for the board to consider when we get to budget setting, and definitely looking at all funding sources for that. Thank you.
Okay. This is for possible action. So if there's no other questions from the board, we'll take it to chambers for public comments. Okay. No, seeing no other public comments. Ms. Johnson, is our online person interested in commenting on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marcia Johnson for the record. There is no online attendees at this time, so there's no public comment.
Okay. Well, okay. So since no further public comment, we're bringing it back to the board, and I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the final report from federal engineering and direct staff to identify funding to implement all or portions of the suggested actions in this report.
Motion by Commissioner Tarkanian, seconded by Commissioner Ingalls, to approve the final report of Federal Engineering Incorporated for the Public Safety Radio System Study, and direct staff to identify possible funding to implement all in or portions of the suggested actions in the report. Sensing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you once again, Mr. Johnson, for your report. We'll move on to item number 8, and I think unless Ms. Walker really ties up our time here, we may actually be able to finish before noon today. But I don't want to put any time constraints on you, so. And I don't have any lunch reservations, so you don't have to worry about that either. But anyways, for presentation only, presentation of the proposed FEMA flood map revisions and review the timelines pertaining to the Smelter Creek area. Ms. Courtney Walker and Mr. Jeff Brunel and our Kimley Horn engineer.
Good morning, Courtney Walker for the record. I was expecting to say good afternoon. Things are moving pretty quickly today, which is great for everyone. I have Jeff Brownell here with me as well. He's with Kimley Horn. I wanted to introduce this study. We did a floodplain map revision for the Smelter Creek drainage, which is in the Ruin-Strath area in the southern part of the county. And I want to just provide a little bit of clarification. We did recently complete an area drainage master plan for the Ruin-Strath area that was presented to this board a couple of months ago. This is a separate project, but also somewhat related, as a lot of the hydrology was used from the other study to revise the floodplain here. And so we've had a large area of unnumbered A zone, which is basically an approximate zone that doesn't give you a base flood elevation. Several building permits come in for shops and things like that, and it requires extra study on an engineer that the homeowner has to hire to figure out the base flood elevation. And we really wanted to look at this because we thought that it might result in several homes being removed, which it has. And so with that, I will let Mr. Brunel go through the presentation, and we'll be happy to take any questions at the end.
Mr. Brunel, can you turn on your microphone, please? Thank you.
All right. Is that better? All right. Good morning. Jeff Brownell for the record, Kimley Horn and Associates. So just real quick here, kind of some of the project partners. This project was initiated as a FEMA-funded cooperating technical partner grant-funded program. Administered through Carson Water Subconservancy District. Douglas County is obviously the project donor, and Kimley Horn is the engineering consultant. Y'all, I'm sure, are familiar with the area, so I don't probably need to dwell on this much, but the Ruin-Strath area, as Ms. Walker indicated. So our project goals here were to build on the hydrologic modeling that was completed for the area drainage master plan. That project completed 100-year hydrology. We had to take that and expand it to other storm events or return intervals for FEMA, for FEMA's regulatory products and FEMA requirements. So that included storm events from as small as a 2-year event up to a 500-year event, with the 100-year storm being the regulatory storm. And then we wanted to use, our two-dimensional hydrologic and hydraulic softwares to kind of develop more accurate floodplains in the area. And then submit this as a letter of map revision to FEMA, which that has been submitted and is currently in review. This is what the effective mapping looks like. All that area that's in the kind of the blue shaded portion of the area is the zone A, approximate A zones that are subject to the mandatory flood insurance requirement for any lending, any mortgage lending. And then the kind of the black stippled area there is a shaded X area, so that's kind of a medium risk zone or a 500-year zone. So the new hydrology that we completed, this is the watershed, the entire watershed. It's a pretty large watershed. It extends up into the Pine Nuts. And we had developed distinct peak flows at various locations along Smelter Creek. But the study area there is in the green box, and that's where we can really make the comparisons with the FEMA effective flows, which the next slide here shows. There was 2 discharge locations that we can make a comparison that were published in the current flood insurance study. And one is here at the upstream end of Ruinstrath area. And so the effective 100-year peak discharge here is about 1,050 CFS. Our study generated a peak discharge of 1,230 CFS, so a slight increase. And then we see the same general increase at the downstream end at 395. The effective discharge is 900 CFS, and our study generated a discharge, 100-year discharge of 1,400. So an increase in discharge, but as you'll see, quite a bit of a decrease in floodplain extents, and that's mainly due to just this more accurate methodology. So this is what the flood depths look like. Anything that's dark blue, yellow, green, orange, or pink is a half a foot or above. And so those are the areas that are subject to delineation as a special flood hazard area or a FEMA floodplain. And then the lighter blue areas or no color are the depths that are less than that we can define as not necessarily in the special flood hazard area. So from a mapping standpoint, this is what it looks like at a large scale. And the blue areas there are the Zone 8E areas, so that's a riverine floodplain delineation. Those kind of squiggly lines are all the base flood elevation lines, so those are locations where the water surface elevation is determined to a whole foot. And then the orange areas are kind of the breakouts of Smelter Creek. And we delineated those as AH, which is a kind of shallow sheet flooding designation from FEMA with varying base flood elevation. So you see the same squiggly lines. And that approach allowed us to define those areas outside of the riverine main channel portion of Smelter Creek and not have to create new riverine flow paths that come with a lot of, several additional regulatory requirements, but still include those in the high hazard area. And another thing I wanted to point out here is if you look down that kind of the lower left corner there is a new tributary that was delineated as part of this study, calling it Smelter Creek Trib 1. That is a new flooding source as part of the study. That floodplain was there, but the flooding source is new. So this is the good news part of it, and this is kind of where the rubber meets the road on the study. This map here shows the change. What we'll anticipate is the change for the effective mapping to once this becomes accepted by FEMA. And all that area in green is all the areas that are being removed from the special flood hazard area, along with the structures, which total to about 231 structures removed. The areas in blue are unchanged. And then there's an area in orange that is an added area up on the kind of the north fringe. And there is 4 structures that are being added to this. And we really took a close look at those and made sure that that was as accurate as possible before making those decisions or delineating the floodplain in those areas. But a net, obviously, increase in removed structures of 227. So definitely a positive change from this study. The one thing I will say about the 4 structures that are being added is they are right on the edge or the fringe of the new delineation. So there's a high likelihood that they will be able to be removed through the elevation certificate or MT1 process once this becomes effective. Same map here, just without the change coloring. This is just the floodplain in blue and then the structures in green, blue, and red for added and removed. So finally, just kind of a project schedule here. We submitted this to FEMA in mid-January. FEMA technically has 90 days to respond. They did already reach out and request some data, so we know that they're hopefully actively reviewing this. We expect comments back in the April timeframe. there will be comments, there always are comments. I don't think FEMA is in the business of approving these on the first go-around, but those are, we'll turn those around quickly, and then the second review period should be quicker. They have 90 days again to respond, but typically that is a shorter time frame. So right now we expect FEMA approval sometime in the June timeframe. There will be a 90-day appeals period for this since the floodplain is changing and expanding in some locations. So effective date of this is right now anticipated to be in September. And that's when it will be a regulatory product and official. I think that's it. Questions?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Commissioners? Mr. Ingles?
I'll direct this to Courtney. Courtney, with your exploits out in the field, are you encountering any or many residences or developments that are in FEMA floodplains?
Courtney Walker, for the record. Are you speaking about countywide or in Ruinstrath specifically?
Countywide.
Countywide. There are several areas in the Carson Valley that are in the floodplain that are affected by the Carson River floodplain. There are some floodplains coming out of the washes, if you'll call them that, coming out of the Pine Nuts. They're much smaller floodplains, but the riverine floodplain from the East Fork and the West Fork of the Carson River are the primary ones. And luckily for us, a lot of that is open space land, ag land. There's not a lot of subdivisions in those areas, and it's kind of by design the way that our code is written. It's pretty challenging to divide property and subdivide it in the floodplain areas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But that was a great job, and particularly with the end results. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yep. And that's basically what I wanted to indicate, is that I'm sure that our Ruinstrath residents would appreciate seeing this. I know you had a community forum several months ago where they you involved all of them in this, and so I think this is encouraging. I would once again take the opportunity, since you're here today, to thank you again for your stormwater mitigation, flood mitigation efforts in South County, not only in Fish Springs, but also in Holbrook Highlands and the Topaz Lodge area. We're hopefully going to see some more rainfall this season. But anyways, we appreciate your efforts and your continuing efforts in that regard. So I appreciate this report. With that, okay, Mr. Rice.
For either of you, either, whichever you prefer, the folks that live in the area that have been removed from the floodplain, when would it be September of '22 before they could see any changes in their flood insurance?
Courtney Walker, for the record. Yes, the map has to become effective before if they hold a mortgage, before their mortgage company would allow them to remove that requirement of having flood insurance. If they want to keep it, of course, that's always an option as well. The price does go down pretty dramatically if you're not required to have it.
Good, thank you.
Excellent question, Mr. Rice, and I appreciate you asking it. So that's important for our residents, and I think they're anxious to see this pass then. So anyways, if no other comments from the board, we will excuse you and thank you for your presentation. And you can still make your lunch date. So,
Thank you.
okay. Okay, we're to our last and final item today. For presentation only, reports and updates from county commissioner members concerning the various boards and or commissions that they may be a member of or a liaison to, or meeting functions they have attended. We'll go right down the line here. Mr. Tarkanian, anything to report? No? Mr.
Let you report on the convention.
Mr. Ingles?
I want to see if anybody else picked up on this. I think it was in the Record Courier that there is something like 3,000 gallons of crankcase motor oil being dumped in the streets. Did anybody else see that? I'll have to check with Ed James on that. I mean, I don't know. Is there an ordinance against crankcase oil being dumped in the streets, Doug?
And Mr. Rice.
I had the pleasure to attend a tour of the new event center right before we went to Washington. And I must say that it is magnificent. It's going to be the crowning jewel in the our area of Lake Tahoe. And I did notice somebody had public comment wanting to know when the LTVA and TDVA move into the building, are we going to have to pay for the rent? The answer to that is no. They own the building. And it was built at no cost to the taxpayers down here whatsoever. And this is going to be a great boon. And ever since the start of construction, the owners of the casinos and the Casino Corps have decided to upgrade their facilities. And that means that we will be getting more tax return and revenues from the casinos up there, because we don't get anything from gaming. All we get is property tax. And when the property is devalued, we get less tax money. Now that the properties are going to be increased in value, we will see more tax money. And a lot of that is because of the event center. And it's now rescheduled again for possibly January of 23. So we're getting close.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. As was indicated by Mr. Tarkanian, several of us had the opportunity to visit the National Association of Counties legislative session in Washington, D.C. Earlier this week and last weekend. Once again, the thing that I will indicate is that our country is primarily made up of rural counties, and that was a pleasure to see, to visit with the other commissioners from the other rural counties. There's 3,000 plus counties in this nation, but a vast majority of those are rural counties, and so it was a pleasure to talk to commissioners who serve in similar geographics that we do and share their concerns that are existing. I did take notice to the fact that while the Biden administration brought a lot of the departmental people before us, they kept talking about federal funds this, federal funds that, federal funds this, and federal funds that. And I constantly had, as fellow rural commissioners also shared, the federal government does not manufacture money, and all the money that is available coming back into the counties, that's all money coming directly out of your pocketbooks and my pocketbook. And so I will do my best as a county commissioner to bring every dollar back that goes out of this county back into this county for use in its proper method. So we've identified a number of those areas, and so we'll diligently work in that regard. So anyways, other than that, I have nothing else to report. So with that, I guess we will go on to the closing public comment, if no other commissioners have anything else to share. So anyways, okay. So at this time, okay, we'll try it again. At this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the County Board of Commissioners or those agenda items where public comment has not already been taken. And I sense Mr. Gaines has more to share with us. Mr. Gaines?
Ted Gaines, I showed you at the start of this, the harassment thing handed out by the county and the ethics. Our county manager, when I was having a discussion with Doug last time, mentioned a person's name in this county. I suppose you heard it from him. So I don't want the harassment or the intimidation to go after that person. All this stuff is going to the Attorney General's office as well as that. Now, nextly, in them documents is an email for Ann Damian. Before we left for lunch last week, and I need to apologize because I think that comment at the beginning from you was meant for me because I stayed here, but I got stopped by Mr. Jackson and Mr. Ritchie when we were talking. I was trying to leave, but I do apologize to the lady for holding her up for lunch. Now, there's an email stating Rebecca Spate's new position in the building departments. She's some kind of a coordinator. What is she doing signing engineering off? I have several copies of engineering she's been signing off. So I question that. What's going on there? We can't get in and look at any inspections in any building. Every county, Lyon County, Washoe County stuff, I've been in them for relatives and friends looking at who did the buildings, what was problems with the buildings and the inspections. We're not allowed to do that. We can see everything else, like I told you. But I got them before lunch was done. So I thank whichever legal person called and said, send this to Mr. Gaines. So we know it's all there. Why won't the county be a little more open with what they're doing? What are they hiding? You guys need to think about that. Now, I mentioned Mr. Dallaire. All the inspectors, I want to know how many of you guys knew that all the inspectors were certified before Tim started taking over here. Every one of them were certified. Now none of them are. How's that feel to your belly, Mark? Now the convention center has hired a certified person from far west to do their inspections. Why doesn't the citizens of Douglas County and residents deserve the same? You're putting them all in harm's way. That should be the same. Now, what I really came here to say is I need some help here. I explained to Mr. Coverley as he was leaving. We have an issue, thanks to Mr. Ingalls opening it up to me, and I've been studying it, with electric cars and batteries. We're losing tons of money with permit fees because these all take special or another circuit, another thing and thing. They're supposed to be in certain places outside the house. Our first responders, which usually is a cop's going to get there first, gets there, they know nothing about the chemicals in this. We need some help to get this in the county, get in that database so we can let our firemen, our EMT people and stuff. Mr. Ingalls was working on this, and I thank him for that. I hope he will pick it up again, and I hope I get some help from the fire department because them people are being in jeopardy. We should know about it. They should know about it. We don't need to know. They need to know. Thank you.
Mr. Gaines, thank you for your comments. The comment earlier regarding exiting the room was not directed at you. As a matter of fact, I only said it at the request of our clerk treasurer, Amy Bergens, because it did not allow our staff to exit the room in a proper amount of time. And so rather than her mention it, I told her I would. So I had no idea what instigated that request. I was just responding to. Okay, so and hopefully you've directed your comments and your documents to the appropriate parties that can hopefully address your questions. So, anyways, with that, is there anybody online, Ms. Johnson, for online comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Marsha Johnson for the record. There is no one online, so there's no public comment at this time.
Okay, so apparently we addressed that person that was online, their questions well, without them having to come on the line and asking that question. So I appreciate that. So with that, seeing nothing else on the agenda, then we will close this meeting at 14 minutes till noon. And everybody go enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.